Да, всем привет. Сегодня расскажу про автоматизацию
Hello,
рутины SOC.
everyone. I will talk about automating SOC routine.
Да. Всем привет. Сегодня расскажу
Okay,
про
so today I'll be talking
автоматизацию рутины
about
SOC
automating SOC
и
routine
поделюсь
using
нашим
open
опытом
source, and
внедрения.
I'll share our deployment
Соответственно,
experience.
контент-мейкеры.
Okay, the
Меня зовут
content
Михальченков
makers. My
Александр,
name is
и я
Aleksandr
отвечаю
Mikhalchenkov.
за
I'm an
компанию
analyst, SOC
Wildberries.
analyst in
За
Wildberries,
техническую реализацию
and the technical
выступала
implementation was driven by Leana Ostamchuk, the SOC engineer.
Зачем это все? Небольшая
Okay,
предыстория.
why do we need
Как
all
работали
that?
аленты
Some
при
background, how we dealt
строительстве
with alerts
начальных
when we were
этапах. У нас
building
была
this at
CM-система,
the initial stages.
были
We
алерты,
had
и,
the
соответственно,
CM system, we
они
had some
отправлялись
alerts
фетчерами просто
there,
в
and
мессенджер.
they were sent to the
И
messenger.
аналитику как приходилось?
And
Он идет
what did the
в
analysts do?
CM, смотрит
They had to
алерты
go to the
новые, какие
CM,
пришли,
see
затем он
new
идет
alerts,
в
then they
трейдинг
had to
и
go to the
просмотряет
thread
реакции.
and respond
Пишет, что он
somehow
взял его в
with
работу и
directions,
идет
say that,
дальше
okay, they are dealing with it,
получать
and
информацию от
then
алертов или
they
от каких-то смежных
try to
систем,
download
например,
information
asset
of these
management.
alerts from other
Соответственно, это не
systems
очень
like
удобно,
asset
поскольку
management.
пока он
This is not
разбирает
very
один алерт, ему
convenient.
может найти
While they're
целая пачка
dealing with one alert,
его
they
сообщений,
can
соответственно, затеряется
receive
в канале с алертами.
many more, and the message will be
Исходя из
lost
этого,
in
мы
this alerts
определили ряд
channel.
проблем.
So this let us
Первое —
identify a
это
number of
отсутствие какой-то
issues.
нотификации
Number one,
алертов, потому что
no
невозможно
notification of
как-то раскрыть
alerts.
жизненный
So
его
we
цикл,
don't understand the
что в
life
жизни
cycle of
происходит
this
в
alert. What's
режиме реального
happening to
времени,
it in real
как
time?
раз-таки по мессенджеру.
So a messenger is not good
Следующее —
for
как
this.
раз-таки deduplikация
And
и
then
группировка, потому
deduplication
что
and
алерты по только
grouping,
одного
because
разбираешь,
we
и
have
помнишь, что я говорил, налипает
many
еще целая
alerts,
пачка.
and
И нужно
you
будет
deal with
докрутить,
one,
потому
and
что
there are
возникнет
many
какая-то
others following,
причина
and then you'll
закрытия
have to
или
go through all of
и
them,
так далее.
the reason for closing, and the
Следующее —
verdict should
это
be
отсутствие какого-то
mentioned.
единого окна
Another issue
работы
is no
инцидентов,
one-stop
поскольку
tool
делал
for
аналитику, он идет
processing
сначала в
alerts.
CM,
So
потом
the
идет в
analyst goes to the
CM-систему,
CM,
то
then
обогащает
to
контекст,
some other systems
и
to
после
enrich
этого
the
все
context,
реакциями
and then
закрывается и
some
уходит в CM.
responses are used, and this is
Следующее —
closed down
международная
in
структура
the
алертов.
CM.
Что
Then
подразумевается
this
под этой формулировкой? Это то, что в качестве источника
alerts
информации в CM у нас
structure.
может быть абсолютно
Well, we
разное
can have
местоположение. Это
any
может быть
source
логин
information in CM,
VPN,
audit logs, the VPN,
access-логи и так далее.
access logs,
И не очень
and so
удобно,
on.
что везде
So
может
it's really
быть набор
heterogeneous,
полей, и в
and it's really
моменте
difficult with this
исходного
different
источника может не
set
доходить
of
до
fields, and
отвечателя.
sometimes you don't receive something from one source, you
Далее,
receive from
подсчет
another
метрик, как я
source.
говорил. Основным
Then
инструментом для
counting
обработки алертов
metrics.
служил
So
CM
we
и
used CM
просто
for
канал
dealing with
затем,
alerts,
где
and we
аналитик
had a
выставлял свои
channel where the
реакции.
analysts
Что-то
would show their
скрывать там — это просто
reactions. And
невозможно.
gathering
Это
something
все
from this
подсчитывать, будет
is
статистику вообще
impossible.
вести,
You
и
cannot
отвечать было просто закрыто,
handle any
потому что просто не
statistics,
было никаких метрик
and
по
we didn't have any
обработке пространства.
metrics for processing this.
Следующее —
The
отсутствие
next issue,
прозрачности процесса разбора алертов
no
и инцидентов. Что
transparency in the process
подразумевается? Это
of
то, что
dealing with alerts
заинтересованные
and
люди
incidents.
в разборе
What I
их
mean
не
is
могли
that
понять, что
people who
сейчас
were
происходит с
interested
алертом, все
in
ли
this
был
analysis
кто-то, не
didn't know
все
what
ли,
was going
по
on with
какой
the alert,
промежуточный
whether it
статус,
was in
вердикт и
progress or not,
причины закрытия,
what the
какие
preliminary
тексты по
status
нему
was,
получать,
what
потому что
were
они
the
просто видели,
reasons,
что есть алерт
and
в
so on.
канале,
They just
и
saw the
непонятно,
alert
разбирается он
and
или
in the
нет, там
channel,
просто
and it wasn't
наименование
clear whether
интерпретирующего правила.
anybody was dealing with it or not. So you only have the rule
Далее,
there
отсутствие
mentioned.
какой-либо вообще
Then we didn't have
оркестрации
any
IT-инструментами,
orchestration
то есть для
of
того, чтобы
IT
заблокировать
tools.
там банально учет,
To
нужно
block
было идти там к
an
администратору,
account, you had to
либо
go to
отдельно
admins
в систему
or
и уже там
to the
производить все
system, and
манипуляции,
there you had
связанные
to
с
run all
этим.
the manipulations accordingly.
Встал вопрос, как же мы будем все-таки
Okay,
это
how
решать?
are we going to solve the problem?
Проблем накопилось много,
Because
времени
it's
затрачивается
a
тоже много, и
big
как-то нужно это разруливать
box
и
of
оптимизировать
issues.
наши
It takes
процессы
too much
по
time, and we
разбору
need to
этого всего.
optimize and sort it out somehow.
Наиболее
Okay.
очевидными вариантами для
The
решения
most
данной проблемы нам
obvious
показалось это
solutions
системы класса
are
SOAR
similarly
и
the
IRP.
SOAR and
Далее
IRP
поподробнее о
systems.
каждой из них и о том, что же
And I'll
все-таки
share
выбрали
with you
для
some details on
решения
what we
этих
have
проблем.
picked to solve
Сейчас
those
небольшой интерактив. Поднимите
problems.
руку, кто
Some
пользуется
interactive
вендорскими
discussion with you. Who
SOAR-решениями.
uses vendor SOAR
Круто,
solutions?
круто. А кто open source?
Okay, and who uses open source?
О, здорово. У нас
Okay, this
мнения
is
разделились, скажем
great.
так.
So we
Это
have
правда круто.
different opinions
Соответственно,
here.
в нашем случае
Good.
мы выбрали
So in our case,
Shuffle,
we picked SOAR
рассматривали
Shuffle.
другие решения.
We
В частности, мы
considered some other
рассматривали
ideas. We
M8M,
considered
но по некоторым факторам
M8M,
мы его
but
отмели.
we
Такие как,
decided
например, отсутствие
against
ролевой
it
модели
because
и
it
вот в
doesn't
том,
have a
что
role
чтобы
model,
поделить
and you need to know GS to fine-tune it, and there is no native use of Bash script. So we also considered Hype and NeoCortex, but we decided to pick Shuffle. Okay, what is SOAR, by the way? The system is responsible for automation, response, and orchestration. It helps you in terms of data gathering and processing, and it also helps you in automating the processing scenarios, which is important for analysts and other functions to speed up the process. If you scan this QR code, you will be forwarded to the developer's site where you can have a better look at this solution. Okay, here are the parts of the Shuffle: workflows, tenants, environments, data store, and access control. So now let's have a look at each and every one of them. So this is a real monster of a working process, so they call it workflow. And now let me describe the components to you. So this is the automation and processing scenario called by some systems based on some conditions, and here they manipulate the input data. The workflow processes, the triggers, what would launch the workflow processing? Why does it start? The first trigger is the webhook. The slide shows how it works. So you just talk to the webhook and you launch this process. You have a system, for instance, and the recommended schema there is that you don't follow a schedule to get there, but rather wants to throw data at you. And you can use this triggers to launch scenarios in webhook. The next one, scheduled launch. When we say that the workflow should be launched at some intervals. So we just follow the schedule to go to the CMs and collect alerts. The next trigger is call of other workflows. So we can use one workflow to call others. Why do we need it? Well, we don't want to have these scary schemes, and we want to somehow debug the workflow. And for this, we can use a subflow, and this will be more convenient and easier to control to centralize. When you have a master workflow and we have some derivative or supporting or subordinate workflows. And the final trigger here is the user input. So this is the trigger which will expect some input from the user to start working. Okay, the next component of the workflow is apps or connectors or integrators or whatever you call them. This slide shows an interface in some detail. So the Shuffle out of the box gives you more than 100 tested apps, and you can also add some of your own. And we'll talk about the types of apps they have. The first one is the REST API. This is quite straightforward. The system supports the HTTP integration, and you follow this list. So what are the interesting things here in the Shuffle? So if the document is in the Open API, we can take this this JSON file and import this, and all the actions available in the document will be available to us. So we will not have to click it in multiple places. You can import the whole thing and use it in our workflow. You can also click it from the interface. If you want to have some custom system which is not there in the documentation, you can use the Postman. We can import the collection, convert into the Open API standard, and then upload it to the Shuffle, which is also possible from the interface. So if the integration format is not available in terms of the REST API, you can use the Shuffle SDK, you can code in Python and also upload the code of the app. For instance, we want to add Kafka to our SOAR using native compression without any proxies. So for this, we use SDK, we code in Python, and we add this code to the Shuffle. And our custom app will be also available from the interface.
Следующее. Отдельно хотелось бы выделить Shuffle Tools.
Shuffle Tools.
Это по своей сущности и структуре тоже является приложением.
This is also an application which has some preset activities. When we use this app, we can call Python scripts to manipulate data, bash scripts, sending mails, and the list is quite long, more than 25 items. The next Shuffle component, we know that we have workflows, which are made of various automated things, apps, and so on. To balance load, we can use the environments. We can have many workflows, and we can segregate them using environments, not to have a long queue at the startup phase. So we show in which environment which flow should be launched. A data store or a buffer. So this is just a key, and it has a lot of functionality. It solves many problems. Like that, some workflows send results there, and some other workflows can be used for reading from this. So we solved the heterogeneity issue for the alerts using this system. When you have the correlation detection rule made by an analyst, you need to fill in the timeline template. So the set of fields which will be useful for this rule. So we go to the CM, we take the timelines and fields, templates, and so we update based on a schedule the information to understand when to use the fields, which fields to use when we get alerts. So we go to this storage, have the key to understand the ID of the timeline, and we don't need to consider all the fields which could be important for our alerts. This helps a lot. And we can also group and deduplicate the alerts. This problem is also solved here. When SOAR gets information from CM, it records the ID if the alert is successfully processed, and this is for grouping, it just adds some information here. And the next one. So we have environments, we have workflows, we have apps, and now we have to segregate some access to them, because in some SOAR systems you can have several teams working at the same time. It's cool, but not all teams want their scenarios to be seen by others. And for this, we can have a tenant, and we can give access to this tenant to some users. And between the tenants, there won't be any workflow visibility. And you can also share them if you need a more granular approach. You can also segregate rights inside the tenants. Shuffle has its own role model with some preset rights. The first one is administrator, having access to everything in the tenant, a user, no access to creating environments or creating tenants, and the org reader, the one who can read but cannot change the structure of the flow or any settings. Here are the issues we solved through SOAR. Alert notification. Well, we could say yes, we have some context, and we send enriched information to the chat on the alert, so we have some context. But the life cycle is not visible yet because we don't have any processing here. Deduplication and grouping, yes, 100% implemented. We have the storage. You know, one stop for processing alerts and incidents not available yet because SOAR is just a tool for data gathering, but not a response tool. Not for analyzing alerts. Counting metrics, no, because we don't have this one-stop service. Transparency of the alerts and analysis process, well, both yes and no, but primarily no, because we don't have a space for an analyst to work there. So this is sent to the chats, and this is not convenient. And orchestration with various IT tools, yes, we do have this, because by definition, SOAR is about automation. And the next one is IRP, the Incident Response Platform. Okay, who uses vendor-provided IRPs? Could you please raise your hands? And who uses open source or in-house? Oh, great. So we have a lot of those who use open source. I'm glad to see that here. We also chose an open source solution. We used IRIS DFIR or DFIR. It is good in terms of the functions it has. Well, also considered DFIR, but it's not as well supported as IRIS DFIR. You can scan the QR code and be forwarded. You can be forwarded this way to the developer site. Okay, some key features. So this is indeed the single stop for dealing with incidents, and this is a must-have for SOC analysts. Reporting. When you analyze incidents, it's really important to have a quick report. You see the summary, lessons learned, and so on. And it has a modular system. Well, this is quite big, isn't it? Let me add some clarity to this. IRIS shares its modules. You can set and tune, and this is really nice. In this SOAR system, you don't have to go to the ERP and ask what has been changed. Please alert, for instance, this. Because using these modules in the IRIS, we can use this setting. When an alert is changed or any other entity is changed, then a module will be generated and the information and fields will be shared with us. I'll share some examples later. Here are some components, alerts, cases, modules, reporting, and access control. Okay, let's have a look at each of them. Alerts. What are they made of? So we have some fields like the criticality, the time of execution, who executed, and so on. You can also leave comments on alerts and the context. That's what I was talking about before, when we use the timeline template to grab the fields we need. This way, the context will give us only the fields we need. So we are not taking the whole spreadsheet with all the fields. So this will be just visual noise which will distract you when you deal with the alerts. The IRIS developers segregate alerts and cases. So these are different cards and they have a different structure. But when we deal with alerts, we understand that they are incidents and we should document them. Then we just highlight the alerts we need, or we click them, then we say merge, and then we fill in the extra information we need when you generate a case.
У алертов появляются гиперссылки.
And these alerts have hyperlinks to the cases they generated, and then you can start processing all this. A few words about the cases. Here you see the components. We'll later talk about each of these components.
Та самая модульная система, модуль ириса.
The modular system, the IRIS modules, this expands the functions it has.
Когда отправляется только нужное и измененное.
When you get all of the information you need, the information which has been changed, they are not throwing everything at you. There are two types of modules here. The first one is pipeline.
Ирис предоставляет как раз-таки один такой готовый модуль из коробки, всего их, по-моему, 5. И вот один как раз вида pipeline.
So this is one of the 5 types out of the box when we can send VTX to Splunk. I don't know why they picked this one.
Но он не так нам интересен.
Well, but we are not that interested in this. We are more interested in the processor type of the module. So it also works in the ERP. So we have some triggers for changes of every entity. So change, creation, and deletion. And this processor module lets us subscribe to these triggers. If trigger 1 trips, then the module is launched and the information is sent. If an alert is changed, then the change is sent to the SOAR, to our Shuffle SOAR.
Про контроль доступа.
Access control.
Работает таким образом тоже на тенантах, только в терминологии Iris.
It's also tenant-driven. For IRIS, this is called customer. So you have the customer for the user, for the alert, and this way you can reduce access to alerts or cases. So the rights are based on the groups, and there are 12 types of user rights, and this is mapped to users. One user can have many groups. When you deal with cases, this is cool, by the way, we can give access to customers, and we can also give every user some granular rights to read or change an incident.
Как это работает все вместе?
What if we pull it all together? The heart of this is the SOAR. Like we get alerts from CM, so SOAR goes to the CM system as scheduled and grabs the alerts. And then several stages follow. The first one is deduplication and grouping, then processing, and then enrichment. So we enrich the context of the alert using some adjacent systems like asset management, vulnerability management, and you name it. And then in parallel we send a message to the messenger. Here is an alert with all the fields, and in parallel we create or update an alert in the IRP. Okay, finally we have this one-stop service. Almost there. Okay, the analyst mentions this alerts.
Соответственно, меняется статус и проставляется исполнитель, тот, кто хлопнул по ладони.
So here you can see who executed this, and so you change the status in the system. In the messenger, you can set the response. And now we understand who is now dealing with this alert. And the analyst can also send comments to the IRP, and it will be also sent to the thread. And they can also tap someone in the chat who is not in the IRP. This is more convenient for dealing with alerts. So when an analyst has analyzed the alert, so we need to set the resolution status and to put in the verdict. The resolution status is quite interesting here. You cannot add this resolution status natively through the web interface. You will have to fix it at the code level, but this is not a big problem, is it? So an analyst will close down the alert, and in the thread we see a message that the alert is closed down. Here is the information, and here is the reaction.
Про обработку кейсов либо же инцидентов. про каждую из этих сущностей.
Cases or incidents.
Первая вкладочка у нас в кейсе — это
The first tab here is summary. We can show the team which is going to deal with the incident, and we can also add a description. It can be done in plain text and in the markdown process. It will be the format. It will be processed later, and it can be done really nicely. The next one is notes. The team can make groups of notes, add new notes, and add some structured information. This is quite convenient, so that you don't have it scattered around a million of Google Docs. It's difficult to get it all back later. So that's what it looks like. Just a header and some content. No rocket science here. The next tab is assets. Here you can show the assets we found in our investigation. You can also find some indicators of compromise and some context. You can also enrich it, because when we deal with cases, we can use triggers, or we can manually call modules. The next one is compromise indicators, what we have discovered while investigating an incident. So here you have an entity, its description, and a type. And you can also use the TLP color coding. It's really important to fill in the compromise indicators and also assets, because it will be further used for the generation of this automated Nexus graph. The next one is timeline. I like it. I think this is one of the reasons why we decided to use IRIS solution, because here you can really well describe the time sequence of events, and we can have a major event and some sub-events which are related to the major one. And if we also show compromise indicators, so you can see that this indicator will be highlighted, and it will be a hyperlink. So from the timeline, we can follow it and see what kind of IOC it is. This is what this looks like. Here we show the assets related to the event and the compromise indicators, the time and description. So this is the Nexus graph. No rocket science again. So this is the connections we previously mentioned, and this way we can see what kind of asset or compromise indicator is, and we can follow this link to have a look at the entity. Okay, if there are several people dealing with an incident, several analysts, and the incident manager, it's nice when incident manager can set tasks within the framework of the same case and keep track of the life cycle of each task. This is really nice, and they can also this way appoint the owner of the process, and the owner will report back on what they have done on a given task. Okay, proofs or evidence. Here is what it looks like. The name, the time, and the description and the file. Sometimes we find security logs we need to upload. We can also have backup files, and we can use all this. And we can add it here. Well, in the past, there was an issue here. The file size was limited, but they recently removed it. So now we don't have this limitation. So you should be careful. Don't upload images here. Don't upload whole disks here. Okay, the case, the incident has been analyzed, and now you need to download an Express report. IRIS supports this. You can use all the fields you have in the cases, and you can download this all to the report. They have support of the doc format. You can also use Markdown and HTML. I think doc is the most convenient format. So what do we have here? we can use conditions and cycles.
На use case, для чего могут
Well,
понадобиться условия.
a
Например,
use case. Why do you need conditions? Say we didn't find any compromise indicators when analyzing the incident, but we have them in our report template. So this way we can see whether we have any compromise indicators or not, and this can be used for skipping or filling in this page in our report. The cycles, they become useful if you want to bring to this table the information from the timeline. So we just copy-paste it, and it looks really nice and easy to digest visually. The metrics. IRIS doesn't have its own API engine, so we just connected the base with Grafana. So all the metrics are calculated on Grafana, not IRIS. But at least it logs this, and we can collect the statistics. As I mentioned before, we didn't have it in the past. Here are the issues. We are the happy cat now. Everything is in green. We solved all the problems, and so we are ready for production and to be more effective in dealing with our alerts and incidents.
Architecture-wise, SOAR and IRP. First, let's look at SOAR.
Shuffle стоит, получается, из 4 компонентов глобальных таких. Это его
Shuffle states 4 components: front, back, Wildberries, and cluster. OpenSearch is used as a storage, which is good. That is not some relational database. So Wildberries would use a schedule to go to backend and see whether there are any tasks for performing the workflow. And thus, an Wildberries is launched that generates an app instance. And then magic happens. Regarding the IRP architecture for IRIS. Postgres is used as storage, the app itself, workers, and RabbitMQ is used to work with queues. The Rabbit receives
модули, про которые я говорил ранее, там
a task,
процессор или pipeline модуль.
And then the modules work depending on what is needed, processor, pipeline, etc. Experience of operation and the advantages and disadvantages of each system. The benefits of Shuffle.
Простая интеграция сторонних систем.
That simple integration of third-party systems.
REST API, то это прям супер просто. Мы просто импортируем.
REST API is very straightforward. We just import in OpenAPI and convert. Workflow visualization. We can see every launch of every process, and we can troubleshoot it.
Поскольку это каждое действие наглядно. Более того,
every action is visible.
Запрос к какой-то системе. Происходит автоматический парсинг полей, нам не нужно парсить все руками.
Field parsing happens automatically. We don't need to parse manually.
Команды действия. И возможность как раз-таки использования Python, либо же...
And finally, the ability to use Python or Bash scripts
информацией, которая
to work with data,
получаем в SOAR.
The information that we get in SOAR. Disadvantages. You want to always monitor the health of OpenSearch cluster, because when it gets red, everything halts.
Нельзя запускать ноды Orboros.
You can't run Orboros nodes of one environment on different machines. If we do so, we'll see that from every node, Orboros would get the same task and will get duplicates. And not just that.
Поймайте на том, что из первого пункта у нас будет краснеть кластер OpenSearch, потому что
we can see that OpenSearch turns red because the load increases by multiple times. And you can't load Python libraries. You can load them within your custom apps through SDK, but you cannot use third-party libraries when you run from Flow. Why? Because Shuffle Tools is an app, it has its own libraries, and either we recompile Shuffle with our own libraries, or we don't use them, or we write our own custom app with the libraries that we need. IRIS. Advantages. First, the modular system, ability to write custom modules. It's good. We don't load SOAR by addressing it constantly and checking for any changes. Second, creation of custom templates of reports and cases. Reports we have talked about. I gave you an example of a report, and cases are field taxonomy in JSON. And then we can tell IRIS that we use a particular template for a particular case, and it would work. And the big advantage is that a single window of working with alerts and incidents. You don't need a million systems to follow up on alerts. Disadvantages. You can't filter by alert context. Okay, we can dynamically see what fields we need, but you can't do that in real time in terms of filtering. You could only filter by system fields. Hopefully, in the future, that would get resolved and you could have full text search. Absence of our own visualization engine. Grafana is good, but because we collect our metrics in that system, it would be good to visualize also in that system. And at least currently, you cannot mass process alerts, but the developer is aware of that, and hopefully that in the future versions they will fix that. By mass processing, I mean that if we see an alert and we see that it's the same thing as that one, and ideally you would want to close this alert and a few others, but you can't do it at the moment. You need to find workarounds for it to make sure that it's transparent for everyone. That is the end of my report. Finally, I want to mention that open source for SOAR and IRP is not as scary as it might seem, and maybe my presentation would help some.